You don't forget the first time you really see him. Not just on screen, but feel him. A man so large he seems carved from stone, yet so gentle that silence follows him wherever he stands. When I finally watched The Green Mile, I realized something. This was not just a performance. It was a confession, a soul laid bare through quiet eyes and a trembling voice. Many believed Michael Clarke Duncan should have won an Oscar for that role, and for once, Hollywood felt like it almost got it right. But what makes his story unforgettable is not the awards he nearly won. It is the man he was when the cameras were off. They called him Big Mike, the gentle giant, a man fans did not ask for autographs from. They asked for hugs. Children, seniors, strangers of every race, all drawn to the same warmth. His rise came late, his impact came fast, and his ending came with questions that never fully settled. Behind the smile was a man who trusted deeply, sometimes too deeply. And in an industry that rarely protects kindness, that trust may have cost him everything. So what really happened in the final chapter of his life? And why does his story still feel unfinished? He did not grow up surrounded by dreams. He grew up surrounded by concrete. Michael Clarke Duncan was born on December 10, 1957, on the south side of Chicago, inside the towering walls of the Robert Taylor homes. These were not just housing projects. They were a pressure cooker of poverty, violence, and survival. His father, a railroad worker struggling with alcoholism, left when Michael was still a small boy. From that moment on, the family's future rested on one person. His mother, Jean Duncan, worked brutal 18-hour days as a cleaner. She raised Michael and his sister Judy alone, teaching them discipline, faith, and pride when money was scarce and danger was everywhere. Watching his father's behavior left a permanent mark on Michael. He made a quiet promise early in life. He would never drink. He would never smoke. He would never lose control of himself. Sports became his escape. Basketball courts offered structure when the streets offered chaos. Football tempted him, but his mother refused to let him play. She feared injuries. She feared losing her son. Instead, she planted a different dream in his mind. Acting. She encouraged him to read, to study words, to use his deepening voice as a tool, not a weapon. By age 12, his voice had dropped into a rich baritone that made him stand out everywhere he went. Standing out came with consequences. Other kids challenged him. Fights followed him home. His sister often stepped in first, protecting him before trouble could grow. His mother made her position clear when he once mentioned joining a gang. She struck him with a frying pan and ended the conversation. In her house, survival did not mean surrender. After high school, Michael attended Kankakee Community College, starting center on a nationally ranked basketball team. He wanted out of the projects so badly that he hitchhiked 17 miles to campus every day. Later, he transferred to Alcorn State University, studying communications while continuing to chase athletic dreams. Coaches believed his size could take him to the NFL. His mother said no. Again, when she fell ill, Michael quit school without hesitation. He returned home to care for her, digging ditches for a gas company by day and working security at nightclubs after dark. Even then, people noticed something different. He was strong, but gentle, dangerous only when forced. Friends laughed at his Hollywood ambitions, calling him Hollywood Mike. He laughed with them, but he never stopped believing. Success did not come knocking early. It waited until he was almost out of breath. By the time Michael Clarke Duncan arrived in Los Angeles, he was already carrying years of disappointment. Audition after audition ended the same way. Polite smiles. Silent rooms. No callbacks. At his lowest point, he lived out of his car, sleeping under bridges, wondering if belief alone was enough to survive Hollywood. To eat, he returned to what he knew. Security work. Protection. Standing quietly between chaos and the people who paid him to keep it away. Those jobs placed him close to fame before he ever touched it. He guarded sets, studios, celebrities. Along the way, small acting opportunities slipped in through the cracks. Music videos, television appearances, a brief role in Friday, standing beside Debo in a scene that fans still remember. A moment on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Even then, his presence lingered longer than his lines. The night the notorious B.I.G. was killed changed everything. Michael was scheduled to work security that evening. He switched shifts at the last moment. The man who would have stood beside Biggie lived. The man who replaced him did not. Michael never liked speaking about that night. He walked away from security work soon after, deciding that if life was giving him another chance, he would finally use it. Then came the role that changed his fate. Armageddon. A blockbuster. Explosions. Big names. And for the first time, Michael Clarke Duncan was visible. On set, he formed a quiet bond with Bruce Willis, a friendship that would alter his career forever. When the opportunity arose to audition for The Green Mile, Bruce Willis personally recommended him. The role of John Coffey nearly went to someone else. Bigger stars. Bigger names. But Michael arrived prepared. He read the novel twice. He understood the weight of silence. During his first audition with director Frank Darabont, he broke down in tears, not from fear, but from gratitude. He wanted to make his mother proud. The performance stunned audiences. John Coffey was not loud. He was not violent. He was vulnerable. And America felt it. The film earned over $200 million worldwide. Michael received an Academy Award nomination and a Golden Globe nomination. For a man who did not break through until his 40s, the ascent was sudden and overwhelming. Hollywood followed quickly. The whole 9 yards. Planet of the Apes. The Scorpion King. He redefined the Kingpin in Daredevil, reshaping expectations with both size and restraint. His voice became a signature, carrying animated films like Kung Fu Panda to massive success. And to many fans, he would always be Otis from Welcome Home. Roscoe Jenkins, warm, familiar, unforgettable. But behind the rising box office numbers, something quieter was happening. The body that carried him this far was beginning to fail. From the outside, he looked indestructible. On the inside, his body was quietly sounding alarms. By the mid-2000s, Michael Clarke Duncan was everywhere. Films, voice work, appearances. His schedule stayed full, and his smile never faded. But behind that calm presence, something was wrong. He began experiencing sudden blackouts. Moments where the world simply shut off without warning. At first, they were easy to dismiss. Fatigue, dehydration, stress, until they were not. Doctors eventually delivered news that changed everything. Michael was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, a rare inflammatory disease. In his case, it was even more dangerous. Cardiac sarcoidosis, the same condition that had taken comedian Bernie Mac. His heart was under attack from his own immune system. A pacemaker was implanted. The message was clear: slow down or risk everything. Michael listened. Completely. He became a vegetarian overnight, throwing away thousands of dollars worth of meat from his refrigerator. He dropped more than 90 pounds. He worked out daily, not to look strong, but to stay alive. He loved animals deeply, filling his home with dogs, cats, and smaller pets, and later aligned himself with people for the ethical treatment of animals, believing compassion should extend beyond humans. At 51, he was healthier on paper than many men half his age. But illness changes more than the body. It reshapes dependence, and it narrows the circle of trust. Around this time, he met Omarosa Manigault in an unlikely place, the produce section of a Whole Foods market in Los Angeles. Their connection moved quickly. Michael introduced her to family. He brought her into his home. Those close to him noticed subtle changes. His speech occasionally slurred. His energy dipped. He seemed distracted. Not drunk. Not medicated. Just not himself. The final Christmas gathering raised quiet alarms. Family members flew in. The house was full. Yet Michael retreated early, skipping gift exchanges, saying he was tired. He struggled to finish sentences. The man who once filled every room now faded into the background of his own home. Then came the decision that stunned everyone. His will was changed. Almost everything was left to Omarosa. His mother and sister, the foundation of his life, were largely written out. To outsiders, it looked deliberate. To his family, it felt unrecognizable. Health crises do more than weaken the body. They shift power. They move voices closer and push others away. And in those final months, as Michael Clarke Duncan fought to stay alive, the people around him began preparing for a future without him. Whether he truly understood those choices remains the question no document can answer. In America, the way a man dies often reshapes the way he is remembered. And in this case, the questions were louder than the answers. In July 2012, Michael Clarke Duncan suffered a massive heart attack at his Los Angeles home. According to accounts, he stopped breathing during the night. His fiancée, Omarosa Manigault, called 911 and performed CPR until paramedics arrived. Doctors later stated that her actions saved his life, but not his mind. He had gone too long without oxygen. The damage was severe. He was placed into an induced coma. From that moment on, control shifted. As news spread, American media took a cautious tone. Headlines focused on recovery, not crisis. Public statements suggested improvement. Friends spoke of hope. Yet behind the scenes, Michael's family described a very different reality. Access was limited. His home was locked. Family members stayed in hotels, traveling hours by bus to see him in the hospital. They were told not to speak publicly, not to ask questions, not to interfere. What unsettled them most was what did not happen. No independent autopsy. No release of the 911 call. No clear timeline explaining how long Michael went without oxygen before CPR began. For a public figure, these omissions felt unusual. For a family in mourning, they felt unbearable. As weeks passed, reports claimed Michael was improving. Actress Holly Robinson Peete said he was responsive, watching television, eyes open. Intensive care restrictions were lifted. Then, suddenly, everything reversed. Organ failure followed. Kidneys, pancreas, blood pressure spikes. After 2 months on life support, Michael Clarke Duncan died on September 3, 2012, officially from respiratory failure. Public reaction fractured. Some accepted the explanation without question. Others did not. LaToya Jackson ignited controversy on Celebrity Apprentice, openly accusing Omarosa of wrongdoing. Lawsuits followed. Media cycles exploded. Claudia Jordan accused Omarosa of turning the funeral into a public spectacle, claiming grief took a back seat to image. Omarosa responded forcefully. She denied controlling the estate, denied isolating Michael, accused the family of financial motives, claimed threats and extortion. In America's court of public opinion, both sides found supporters. But no court ever settled the truth. For many viewers, especially older Americans, the story touched a deeper nerve. It echoed familiar fears. Trust misplaced. Power shifting during illness. Families divided when money enters the room. The quiet realization that even a beloved figure can become isolated at the most vulnerable moment of life. The media moved on. Hollywood continued. But the questions stayed. Long after the headlines faded, one image stayed. A man standing still, eyes gentle, voice soft, carrying pain without complaint. That is how many Americans still remember Michael Clarke Duncan. Not as a scandal, not as a controversy, but as a presence. A rare kind of man in a hard industry. Someone who never needed to dominate a room to be felt inside it. His legacy is not measured only by box office numbers or award nominations. It lives in quieter places. In the way audiences leaned forward when he spoke. In the way children felt safe approaching a man twice their size. In the respect he showed crew members, security guards, waitstaff, and strangers who never expected kindness from Hollywood. The Green Mile will always stand as his signature role, but his real performance happened off-screen. A man who loved his mother fiercely. A man who walked away from violence even when surrounded by it. A man who believed discipline and goodness could shield him from harm. For much of his life, they did. But his final chapter reminds us of something harder. Strength does not protect us from vulnerability. Success does not guarantee safety. And kindness, when paired with blind trust, can leave a person exposed at the worst possible moment. In America, stories like his resonate deeply with older generations. Because many have seen it before. A family divided by illness. Decisions made when clarity is uncertain. Voices growing louder as one voice grows weaker. And afterward, the silence. The kind that never fully explains itself. Michael Clarke Duncan was 54 years old when he passed. A vegetarian. A health-conscious man. Still working. Still planning. Still loved. Whether his final days unfolded exactly as they should have may never be fully known. And perhaps that is the final truth of his story. Some lives end with answers. Others end with questions we carry forward. If this story moved you, ask yourself what you remember most about him. Was it John Coffey's quiet tears, Otis's warmth, or simply the feeling that this world lost someone genuinely good? And if this story reminds you of someone in your own life, someone who trusted too much or gave too much, share their name below. We read every comment.